wrote it. And so it's really important that we remember that as fascism rises up and closes in on us, that we don't try to cower in a corner or find a comfortable place in oppression. There is no place of comfort in these times. The only thing that secures our liberty, that secures our freedom, that makes us safe is to resist fascism. So absolutely resist.
I talked a lot about this on my show prior, and you're right. I know it's not time to stand down, but I talked a lot about it before because I feel like there's been so much preemptive surrender on the part of universities, corporations, and individuals, lawmakers. We're just kind of taking a position like, well, we'll hurry up and end our DEI, or we'll punish these students, or we'll change our policies because we're going to acquiesce in advance in case we're attacked by this current administration. I know you'd also talked about this. Do you think the tide is turning now?
I think the way in which fascism and oppression and repression is absolutely apparent, right? Like the mask is off. I think it requires that people and institutions and systems that are not normally prone to resistance or challenged to either resist or become fascist themselves. So if you look at what happened to U.S. Senator Alex Padilla, right? And it wasn't really a bold move. It was just asserting what he's supposed to do as a U.S. Senator, which is question policies that directly impact his state, right, the state of California. And he had a right and an obligation to do that. And the way that fascism took this U.S. senator, slammed him to the ground, put his hands behind his back, and absolutely brutalized him. And he's going, wait, I can't even get my hands to put behind my back because you have them, right, is reminding him that there is no comfortable place in oppression, right, even as a U.S. senator. And so I think people and institutions are even being challenged. I work for the CSU, the California State University System. And when you talk about like these preemptive moves to really implement policies that we think of as right-wing policies, I think initially the institutions wanted to do that anyway, right? They don't like protest on their campuses. Right. So last budget cycle, the California State Legislature passed a time, place, and manner requirement, which means that every public institution and really every university in the state of California had to implement a time, place, and manner requirement saying that you can only have free speech or engage in protest during particular times in a particular place and in a particular manner. And I think initially the universities were really happy to do that, right? They didn't want any more pro-Palestinian encampments. They didn't want people to be able to protest, students to be able to protest. They were happy to have free speech zones, which moved protesters out of the front of the administration buildings and into places like grassy areas, which are at the edges of parking lots instead of in the center of campus. They were happy to do that. And now I think that they're recognizing, wait a minute, that means that we can't even advance who we are. My institution is a Hispanic serving institution. We can't even speak to the fact that we're an HSI if we completely capitulate. And so I think the question becomes, do you become the fascist yourself, or are you going to resist?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. At first they were doing what they wanted to do anyway, and then they started to see this is getting out of hand, and people are getting fired and muzzled, and we can't even function. We can't even get the funding that we need for the most basic kind of functions of a university.
That's right.
And so now the tide is turning somewhat, although there is still some acquiescing that's going on. And it feels like this is just the beginning. I get the impression that this administration wants to take these universities out of business.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was glad to hear, there's not much I'll ever say positive about Gavin Newsom, but I was glad to hear the governor say, look, we actually pay more into the U.S. government, into the federal tax base, than we receive from the federal government. And so if Trump wants to threaten to take away federal funds, we actually would benefit from taking away state funds. And so I think that it's important that folks are pushed hard enough, and it took a personal attack for him to get there, right? The Trump administration threatened Gavin Newsom with arrest, right?
Yeah, and our mayor. I mean,
yeah.
It's like a weird play.
Yeah.
It really is, because now it's so in your face, and you use the example of Senator Padilla, who is not a radical by
At
any
all.
stretch of the imagination.
Right. We were all mad when it became Padilla instead of Barbara Lee, right? Like we wanted Barbara. Wait, was it Barbara Lee?
Yeah.
It was Padilla instead of Barbara Lee.
Yeah.
And we wanted Barbara Lee, who's now the mayor of Oakland, my home city.
Right.
Great. But look, Padilla couldn't even stand up as a U.S. senator and do what he was elected to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's relatively new. I mean, parties have always fought, but you don't just rough up a U.S. senator. There's
That's
only
right.
100 of them, and they're probably the most revered of lawmakers, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. U.S. senator.
Yeah.
A U.S., not a state legislator, not even a member of Congress in the House, right? A U.S. senator, a sitting U.S. senator. It was, I think that they're getting a taste of what regular folks like us get all the time. Like I've been many times tackled to the ground and told to put my arms behind my back, my hands behind my back. But I don't think anybody ever expects that to happen to them. And I don't know him well, but I knew Alex when I could call him Alex before he was elected to office. We're roughly the same age, and we used to have, some friends in common. And he, as far as I know, he's never experienced that even as a regular person. And now sitting in the U.S. Senate is his first time getting tackled and handcuffed. And
yeah. I mean, to be clear, I was mad at Governor Gavin Newsom for not making good on his promise to appoint a black woman to the Senate in place of Kamala Harris. I was not angry that Padilla was the choice, because I think he is a good choice. I mean, I just don't think he's a radical. He's been an ally to our community. He's been consistent. He's smart. He went to MIT, but he's not a radical.
He's not. He's not even a liberal.
I'd give him liberal. Come on now. He's
kind of moderate. He's kind of moderate on a lot of things.
Let's see how he is after.
Yeah, I'm just
after
thinking about his
to the
legislative record. But that's the question. Is that going to push you then? Right?
Yeah.
And that's the hope. Like now you see.
But if you look at his record on things like climate justice, he's pretty far out on the progressive side.
I think that's true.
And he is moderate on some other issues. But does he?
He's a Democrat.
I'll tell you.
Through.
Right.
He's not like a.
He's not an independent. He's not a progressive Democrat.
I don't lift up many electeds, but he's not a Latifah Simon, who's our congressional representative now out of Oakland. He's not a Cori Bush. He's not he is a through and through Democrat. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, the question becomes: will these attacks on our lawmakers radicalize them or make them shrink? So far, if you look at Gavin Newsom, if you look at Maxine Waters, not that she needed to be pushed, it seems like folks are getting angrier and bolder. And in my opinion, that's a good thing. We're talking about resistance, and I want to put it in a global context as we are actually traveling in Africa and speaking in the studio at the same time by the magic of technology. I'll look at that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy and founder of Wesley Financial Group, and I want to set the record straight. I am not an attorney. I've never wanted to be an attorney, and the truth is I really don't even like attorneys. If I sound like an attorney or if I look like an attorney, I apologize. But what I've learned in my 15 years in the timeshare cancellation business is you don't need to be an attorney to get folks out of their timeshare. At Wesley, we've helped over 40,000 families cancel their timeshare without me being an attorney. And I want to share with you how we do it. Just give my office a call, and you will not talk to an attorney. And I guarantee if we take you as a client, we'll get you out of your timeshare, or you'll pay nothing.
Call now for your free timeshare exit info kit. Call 800-798-3399. That's 800-798-3399. 800-798-3399.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Dr. Melina Abdullah is my guest. She is the leader of Black Lives Matter Grassroots and the lead organizer for BLM Los Angeles, also mother of 3. Talking about resistance, it's a way of life for you. I've never seen you preemptively surrender or even, back down in any way. But you always keep a smile on your face. You're an imaginative, funny, fun person for people who have the the pleasure of hanging out with you. You're very much not the stereotype of the person that's constantly resisting the machine. How do you stay in that space, especially right now when so many terrible things are happening?
Prince music. And also, I'm a mom of 3. Like, how can you be serious all the time when you have a 21-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 15-year-old? Like, if you know Amara, you can't be serious if you're Amara's mama, that she's, what do you say, unicorns and rainbows? She is all that,
Yeah, that's and my life philosophy. Unicorns, rainbows, and crystals and flowers, even in the middle of the fight against fascism. In fact, I would say especially in the middle of it, because I don't want to become them.
That's right. That's a history of Black people, right? We're the funniest people. Why are we the funniest people? Because you gotta, whose is that? Kevin Hart, laugh at my pain, right?
Yeah.
We gotta laugh at our pain. We gotta, it's a reminder to all of us that we're human beings and they can't steal our humanity for us. We're the artists of the world because art allows us to connect with our humanity and our divinity. And I appreciate other people's art, right? But it's really important to do that. It's really important to, I was at this Black Radical Organizing conference a couple weeks ago, and we were there with a former political prisoner who we absolutely supported and who's serious and is about the revolution. And he kind of chided us about how we need to be more serious, and we can't afford to sit up and play dominoes. We got work to do. And I said, I played dominoes last night. I played dominoes and spades last night because it also allows us to connect with each other and remind each other that we're human beings and friends and sisters and who take walks together.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Yeah.
And also keep us from getting wore out and dead.
Yeah.
The unalive thing is really, I think of so many activists that I know that, just have gone so serious, never taken care of themselves. And then we could have had them another 10, 15, 20 years had they been able to play a few dominoes and take a few walks.
That's right.
And don't say, don't get on this. It doesn't matter if we're around. I don't want to hear that. But so here we are in a new era of repression, right? Mm-hmm. Second Trump regime. They have a clear plan. They seem to be moving very rapidly in enacting their agenda, repressive agenda. And in the past, we have had, as melanated people and as progressive Americans, we have had a more international kind of solidarity, I think. I think about Malcolm X, El Haj Malik al-Shabazz, taking our case to the UN. I think about the way that Kwame Nkrumah and Julius Nyerere and others, African leaders, supported the African American freedom fighters and vice versa.
Right.
And now we're in a period of time where there's division, people calling themselves FBA or ADOs have separated themselves in their own minds from international black solidarity and struggles. You have division, as we've seen in some quarters, with the anti-ICE protests between black and brown. We've always had our issues, but there's a long history of incredible solidarity and moving issues. And I wonder if this puts us at a disadvantage. If we do, or maybe I'm just too online. Maybe that's only online and it's not in the real world. The question is, do we have the kind of international solidarity and global perspective around resistance that we've had in the past?
Well, it's not the past. So
Right.
no, it's not the same. I do really actually appreciate what you do with the Freedmen's Fridays, right? And these deep and ongoing conversations about reparations. And I think that the reparations conversation over the last, I would say 5 years, I was really nervous about it because I define myself as a Pan-Africanist. I know that you can't, black people not going to get free in just the United States, and, and it wouldn't be right. That's not freedom, right? And so I'm a Pan-Africanist. I believe that all black people, wherever we are in the world, are connected and we rise and fall together. And, struggles on the continent are connected to struggles in the United States. It doesn't mean that they're the exact same struggle. And I think that that's what the reparations conversations, when they're courageous, have been able to get us to, right? That I'm not a descendant of a slave. I descend from formerly enslaved people, right? And I guess I would be what people call foundational Black American. I am, right? And that doesn't mean that I'm disconnected from, I had the great privilege of traveling to Grenada with a lot of radical folks for Minister Malcolm's 100th birthday, to the birthplace of his mama. And no foundational Black American would ever disrespect Minister Malcolm. But his mother doesn't come from the United States. She comes from Grenada.
Right. So Tariq Nasheed would call him a tether. But I think we're starting to see some movement. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen that. I also define myself as a Pan-Africanist. I think, there's my definition is similar to yours. There are points of coalition. Everything's not going to be the same. We know Jamaica has to get their reparations from the English, and we got to get our reparations from the United States. It's not exactly the same, but we're connected. But I also feel like the ADOS and FBA folks have a point from an ancestral place of our ancestors had a very specific fight, very specific struggles, and that needs to be honored, uplifted, and repaired. And so I think that we can take from a lineage base, and we can take from our global connectivity, and we can come out with an even stronger position. If I have an inheritance in the United States and an inheritance in Africa, I would like to get both of those, please.
Right. And it doesn't mean, and I've heard continental Africans actually begin to understand that, right? Like, you're right. If you descend from chattel slavery in the United States, the U.S. government and U.S. corporations, which we don't talk about that enough,
Right.
but owe reparations to us for a specific purpose. And there's also, nobody asked Brother Africa, are you from Los Angeles or you from Cameroon before LAPD killed him, right?
Yeah.
And so there's also repair that has to take place that's broader and that impacts all Black people. So I think that we're getting to some really, really healthy conversations.
Yeah.
And we're learning to celebrate each other. I pray that's the direction we're moving.
And there's also the conversation about what reparations or inheritance is owed to Black Americans, freedmen or whatever you want to call us, by Africa. You know what I mean? If I have an inheritance there, I should. If the Ashanti people or others traded our forefathers for guns, then there's some unfinished business there as well. And I found that the Africans were starting to talk about that
Really?
a little bit too. Yeah, when we were in Ghana at the first 2 times at the Elmina slave dungeons, our tour guide actually apologized to.
I remember that,
yeah.
the 2019.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
so-
I remember that. That was a heavy conversation. I had read Ya Jassi's book. Have you read that yet?
No.
The Homegoing, which is a really thick book, and I didn't really know what it was about completely when I read it, but it's actually about Ghana, and it's really complicated about somebody who descends from Ghana and was enslaved here, and part of her ancestry comes from here and part is from Ghana, and all of that. Anyway, it was it gave me a lot to think through as we were in Ghana.
Yeah, that's when I read. I can't remember the name of it, but I read a book like it'll come to me that opened my eyes too, because there's something about reading it while you're traveling, and I hope everybody gets to travel, whatever you designate yourself as, because my question about international solidarity has to do with not just reparations, but all of these other struggles. You see that, with the Palestinian struggle, the South Africans are the ones who have been out front, in challenging Israel in the World Court, and that the Trump administration is punishing them for that. And we see that in Burkina Faso, you have, President Traore, who has galvanized this protest and support among Africa's children all over the continent of Africa, but also worldwide.
Right.
And so I think about that. Will we stand with South Africa? Will we stand with Burkina Faso as Black Americans the way that Malcolm X and my father, the late Amiri Baraka, and Martin Luther King and others stood with African independence movements, in the 1960s?
Well, what's really interesting to me is a lot of the same people who descend from chattel slavery here, who are talking about foundational Black Americans, also are drawing tremendous inspiration from especially Ibrahim Traore. So I think if they really confront that, then it will push them away from kind of this narrow Black nationalism. Right.
Now you sound like my dad. He was always calling people narrow nationalists. But yeah, that narrowness is really where the problem comes in. I don't think we should be faulted for celebrating our ancestors.
That's right.
Our unique contribution to America, to the world, the specificity of Black American culture.
And it's also a crime that I celebrate the fact that I can trace. We're 7 generations in the United States. And my middle name is Rachel, which is the first woman to be brought to this country as an enslaved person into Sabine Pass, Texas. I celebrate that. I know that she comes from Haiti. I also, though, am mourning the fact that that is the farthest we can go, right? And so we have to think about that our ancestry actually does not begin from the moment we were enslaved. Our ancestry goes much further back. And so we're tied, you would say, by DNA, right? Our DNA is tied to the freedom of Africa.
Yeah, and it's actually literally living in our blood, in our every cell. And when you talk about the West African tradition, the Yoruba tradition, which many of you know I've studied for many, many years, the idea that we have to be able to name 9 generations of our family going back to be considered mentally stable really puts things into perspective for most melanated Americans, because that ability was stolen from us. Most of us cannot even go back to 7 that you're able to trace.
Right.
So all of these conversations are evolving. But in traveling around Africa, I have seen pictures of W.E.B. Du Bois, of Malcolm X, of Martin Luther King, of Harriet Tubman. I've seen big pictures of them at the Slave River, at different museums and such. And so clearly this idea of resistance, and taking inspiration from the moral leadership of our tradition as descendants of enslaved people here in this country is something that many Africans have taken to. And I just, and it used to be reciprocal. And I think maybe you're right. It's that reciprocity is coming back with the boldness of an Ibrahim Traore.
Right. Ibrahim Traore, how can he not be inspirational? How can he not be inspirational? And what's happening on the continent with all the Sahel states, right? Mali and Niger, and now we see this new sister president in Namibia, and you even see states that are nations that used to be thought of as kind of, not too revolutionary, right? Like Ghana, right?
Like Ghana, right?
Like
which
Ghana,
is a stable democracy.
pushing back, right? Yeah. Nigeria pushing back. South Africa has always had an element of revolution, right? There have always been people who, like the EFF folks and others, but you even see the presidents there saying, "No, we want our stolen stuff right now.
Right.
You owe us our treasures right now. You get out right now," right? Which is really, really inspirational and empowering to us. I think as someone who's here in the United States and facing fascism, it also goes back to that question of resistance, that how do we draw the strength and the will to resist? Well, if we watch Ibrahim Traore,
who the mainstream media will call a junta, will call a dictator, because they did have a military coup, they overthrew the government, but what did they do? Kicking out the French, taking back their resources, making education free. So you can call that what you want. And apparently melanated people are getting that message. To your point, the current president of Namibia is named Netumbo Nandi Naidatwa, and she has also made it college free and has instituted this year the first day of mourning for the African people killed by the Germans, and is demanding reparations from Germany. So
that's right.
There you have it.
That's right.
I guess international resistance is alive and well.
Alive and well. And I think that this is me, but God is also smiling when you talk about the what is it, $12 trillion worth of gold discovered in Uganda, right? And is it Uganda? Uganda.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's Uganda. But of course I worry, because that means here comes the gold rush. The colonizers are on the way.
No, keep them out. They're getting kicked. Like the gold miners are getting kicked out, right? It's Mali that is demanding that actually arrested either arrested or threatened with arrest. One of the European gold miners, who not only stole the nation's riches, but then refused to pay taxes on it, right? So
and that's par for the course.
That's right.
Dr. Melina Abdullah is my guest, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. California Senator Sasha Renee Perez has introduced the No Vigilantes Act, requiring law enforcement, including federal agents, to show ID and not wear masks.
Who are these people? We are supposed to assume they are federal agents from Homeland Security or ICE.
The bill aims to stop impersonators and restore trust statewide. Former Vice President Kamala Harris may be eyeing a run for California governor. As she weighs her next move, husband Doug Emhoff is joining USC's law school faculty. Harris recently appeared at the NAACP Image Awards, urging Americans to fight for democracy and justice. And Philadelphia Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts is releasing his first children's book, Better Than a Touchdown, in spring 2026. It follows a boy named Jalen who fights to save his school's football team, sharing lessons on resilience and self-belief. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Well, traffic is really jammed through Inglewood. We have a motorcycle crash on the 405 North just before Manchester. Carpool lane is going to be blocked and traffic is jammed coming from the 105. Then in Southgate, 110 North, just before Florence, carpool and left lane are going to be blocked for a 6-car pileup. Stop and go coming from Century. Then also in Industry, 60 West, just before Crossroads Parkway, there is a crash up on the right shoulder. Some slow speeds, though, coming from Azusa.
Is this the tether? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Angels scored 4 runs in the 8th inning Monday night to beat Boston 9-5. The Angels are 2-2 without manager Ron Washington. Washington is taking a leave of absence to deal with a health issue. The Dodgers were off Monday. They start a 6-game road trip tonight at Colorado. TV ratings for Game 7 of the NBA Finals was the highest for a finals game in 6 years. Oklahoma City's win over Indiana drew an average of 16.5 million viewers on ABC and ESPN. A very special ceremony is taking place today outside the Mobile Convention Center in Mobile, Alabama. City officials are unveiling the Hall of Fame Walk, 6 statues of Hall of Fame athletes who grew up in Mobile. The list includes Baseball Hall of Famers Hank Aaron, Satchel Paige, Ozzie Smith, Willie McCovey, and Billy Williams, and NFL Hall of Fame linebacker Robert Brazile, who played at Jackson State. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Every mother deserves a healthy and joyous pregnancy and birth, and every baby deserves to thrive. That's why the Los Angeles County Abundant Birth Project is here. The Abundant Birth Project is a guaranteed income program that provides cash during pregnancy to pregnant individuals at the highest risk of preterm and low birth rate babies. Although program enrollment has closed, our commitment to Black joy and thriving continues. Through tailored services that foster mental well-being and community-based resources, we provide care and support during pregnancy and after the baby is born to help build brighter futures for our families. Join us in celebrating abundant births in LA County. For more information, please visit abundantbirthproject.org. abundantbirthproject.org.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Resistance is the conversation, talking with Dr. Melina Abdullah of Black Lives Matter Grassroots, BLM LA, and Cal State LA, where she's a professor. And in some ways, I think the early Trump agenda really did have a lot of people back on their heels. Right now, I feel like the overreach that they're doing and these insanely repressive moves, the bringing in of military and National Guard and the unleashing police, that was an actual executive order, right?
Right. That's the title of the executive order, is unleashing law enforcement.
I think that now we've gone over to overreach. That is overreach beyond what you and I would consider overreach, to what maybe more moderate everyday Americans will say this is too much. And it seems like the protests are spreading. We were talking off the air about how many of these protesters have never been out in the streets before, and the challenges that brings. Do you think folks are waking up?
I think
Again?
they are. I think they are waking up. I'm so inspired, talking about inspiration. Yes, I'm inspired by what Traore is doing. I'm inspired by the Sahel states. I'm also inspired being in these streets. And these are who's in the streets. And I know that they like to cast the folks in the streets as outside agitators. One, no. That means you've never been out there, right? But two, I would never condemn, we talked about this before, I would never condemn, I'm an outside agitator, right? So when they're trying to build a cop city in Atlanta, if I can muster together the frequent flyer miles to get there, I'm going, because Black people are all connected, right? But who's in the streets in Los Angeles? I would say at least 80% of them are young brown folks. Young brown folks. And why are they there? Because this is their mamas and aunties and maybe them who are getting rounded up by ICE.
When you say young, we're talking high school, we're talking college?
Some high school. I don't know if they're in college. I don't know. But
teenagers
these look
and up.
like regular like regular brown kids that you can tell, like when I'm in the streets, we're actually doing a series of trainings, Organizing 101. But when you're there's a lot of people, and you can tell they've never protested before, right? I actually had a conversation with this one young brown sister on the freeway. They had marched onto the freeway, and she was directing traffic, and she might have been early 20s, might have been, but she absolutely was under 23, 24. It could have been as young as her teens. And I said, why are you directing the traffic? The point is to stop the traffic. And she goes, but they're innocents. And I said, yeah, but the point is to stop the traffic. If you're going to shut down the freeway, shut down the freeway. And when you let them through, you also allow police to advance closer to us, right? You could tell she'd never been on a freeway before.
Right.
And that was frustrating. Right. But it was frustrating and beautiful.
Right.
Right. It was frustrating and beautiful. I remember, I think Black people got it more quickly, but when we did the first freeway shutdown of the Black Lives Matter era in 2013, I saw that be called. We were marching up Crenshaw, and it was young Black boys, 2 young Black boys. They were like, you know how our young lions, like my son's age, when they get real excited, they start hopping and skipping. Yeah. We get to the 10 freeway and they hopping and skipping and looking at each other. And I saw one look at the other and look at the freeway. And there were these masses of folks marching up Crenshaw, and they hopped and skipped right up onto the 10 freeway on-ramp on Crenshaw and shut it down. But they knew enough we holding this traffic. We not letting the traffic go. I'm saying all that to say that these are people who are directly impacted. Those boys in 2013, they could have been Trayvon easily. This girl who shut down the freeway, who was directing the traffic, she didn't know what to do, but she knew that maybe they've rounded up her mother or her auntie or her grandma, or they're coming to her school. She knew that we got to do something. And so I draw inspiration from the protesters, too.
Do you think that this travel ban that our president has instituted, it's almost a couple dozen countries that are no longer that are either fully or partially restricted from traveling here. Do you think it's just because they want a white ethno-state, or do you think that there's a connection with this international kind of solidarity and or trade, or is it just regular hate? I mean, what do you feel is behind this now, this ban on a total ban on 12 nations?
Right. So we got to be clear that most of those nations, I think it's 8 of the completely banned nations. It's either 11 or 12 total that are completely banned. 8 of them are African nations, right? But Black Lives Matter Grassroots was part of a coalition to oppose the Trump travel bans. And included in that group was CARE, Council for American Islamic Relations. ACLU was a part of it, and BAJI, Black Alliance for Just Immigration, was part of it. Your friend and mine, Nana Jamfi, looked at one of the countries on the list, which I believe was Togo, which is under complete ban. And she was like, there's a total of 40 migrants from Togo here. This is not... It has to have an implication beyond what they're actually saying it is. It's not like people from Myanmar are overrunning the United States. This is not who most of the migrants that are here are. Also, when have you ever heard of a so-called gang from Togo? I haven't. Have you?
No.
Right? So if the argument is that they're gang members, these are not people that you've ever heard of that are gang members.
Yeah.
So I think it's all of the things that you mentioned, but I'll add one thing to the mix, is it's also part of what fascists do, which is create continued disasters, right? So create all of these crises. So we have to respond to their crises instead of charting our own course. And I think that when we say resistance is part of a larger, completely revolutionary agenda where we say, this is what we want. And I think this is why we draw inspiration from what's happening in the Sahel states and on the continent, because they are advancing not just resistance, but revolution, that you should have free hospitals. And Traore has free hospitals, free medical care. We can't do that in the United States, but they're offering free medical care, right? Free education through university. Right, we're not doing that here, but they're doing that there. So resistance and also charting our course and saying, what does freedom look like?
What does freedom look like? We'll continue the conversation with Dr. Melina Abdullah when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up.
Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash.
It's me, Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash. I see those dry elbows, baby. But don't worry, get moisturized right in the shower. So hydrated you can skip the lotion after.
Don't wanna see it dry no more. Skin so moisturized with body wash.
Look at you now, no more dry skin. Your skin gets the moisture it craves with
Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach, transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal, prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Are you ready to play? Then jump into the LA 84 Foundation's Free Playday Block Party, a community celebration for all ages, including live music, dancing, LA's pro sports teams, great local food trucks, plus special giveaways for you to take home. Enjoy an exciting, fun-filled day for the entire family. Join us Saturday, June 28th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at 2141 West Adams Boulevard. To register, go to la84.org. We'll see you Saturday, June 28th at LA 84 Foundation's Free Playday Block Party.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580. The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Dr. Melina Abdullah is my guest, and this is KBLA Talk 1580. And as we talk about resistance, everybody's got a lane, right? Not everybody's going to be in the streets. I have some friends that tell me protest doesn't do anything. I guess we could do a whole show about that. But what does resistance look like to you, whether we're in the streets or in another lane?
Well, one, being in the streets does do something. So whoever said it doesn't do anything, are you kidding me? Right? Being in the streets is what won us civil rights. Being in the streets is what helped us to lift Black power. Being in the streets is, what even made the killing of people at the hands of police, Black people at the hands of police, an elevated issue so that we can say Black Lives Matter, which has had all of these, far-reaching effects from, making sure Black people are in storylines on film to making sure that we teach ethnic studies. So being in the streets is really, really important. Being in the streets or on the campuses, right, is what won ethnic studies in the first place. Being in the streets is hugely important, and everybody can't be in the streets. So I'm going to tell her business a little bit, and I think she's okay with it. But one of... And so I'm not the lead organizer of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. I'm one of the lead organizers of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. We have an entire core team, and on that team is someone named Mama Paula Miner, who is a senior. She won't mind me saying she's a senior. She won't want me to tell her age, though. And Mama Paula comes out from time to time, and she'll pour libation, but her mobility now is not what it was when she was 40. Right? And so we got to have somebody to call if we get swept up. Mama Paula's at home, right? We got to have somebody, Mama Paula said, stop sending out these weekly emails. They have errors in them. Send them to me. We need somebody to proofread our emails, Mama Paula. Mama Paula's an amazing researcher, and we can say, well, how many people did LAPD kill in 2023? And she'll either have that information or she'll get the information quickly and be very precise about it. Everybody doesn't have to be in the streets. We need our seniors to do what they can do. My mama, who's also a senior, she has intentional prayer circle for us every single Wednesday before we go to protest. That's all important. We need people who can pay for stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so we got people who, there was somebody whose name I won't give, who said, look, I want to protest with my checkbook. Good. We only have upstairs bathrooms at the Center for Black Power. That's not accessible. Sometimes when we have big events, we need somebody to pay for a porta potty to sit outside, a nice one, the one with the running water. Mm-hmm. And if you want to protest with your checkbook, do that. We need food at protests. We need supplies at protests. All of those things are things that people can do. People can use their platforms. And so all the protest isn't only in the streets.
Yeah. I have a relative who has terrible asthma and doesn't do well in protests, and she's always saying, I'm the sandwich maker for the revolution if anybody needs sandwiches. So
tell her, we got something tomorrow.
So there's always something that you can do. And what about the fear factor? The retaliation is very swift and real right now. People getting deported or their green cards taken, people getting jailed even when they're citizens, folks losing their college degrees, which I think is insane. If you did the work and paid the tuition, I don't know how they can do that.
Right.
But I don't know how they can do that is something I need to stop saying, because they're just doing it right now.
They're doing whatever they want. And what that means is do not be debilitated by fear, because they may kick in your door anyway, even if you think you're sitting on the couch eating popcorn. So you gotta plug in, right? They're relying on you being fearful. They're also threatening organizations. And I don't know if you've talked about that, but organizations like Cheerla, which is, again, one of these moderate organizations, they're not an in the streets organization. Most of the time, that's Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights in Los Angeles. They got a letter from the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee investigating them. Baji got a letter. Union del Barrio got a letter, right? And so they're threatening organizations as well. And we have to be completely unafraid, because that is their goal of trying to instill fear, is to get us to relent.
Right. And to your point, I mean, there's no guarantee that just because you were quiet, that's that Audre Lorde quote that I love, your silence will not protect you.
That's right. That's right.
Because it really doesn't.
No.
On the other hand, Black Lives Matter LA, I was at a meeting you guys had, and we only have a couple of minutes here, but the advice for protesters, I think, was tremendously helpful, especially those who have not been in the streets before.
Yes, I'm trying to remember which part of it, but
well, I mean, just, I guess, the ABCs of protesting, like, don't go by yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? But know what you're getting yourself into. Know if you're really ready to be arrested.
Right. And this is the we keep us safe, because the other part that we have to remember under fascism, all these so-called rights that they say you have, they are not respecting those rights. So when you say, I have a right to give me your name and badge number, these fools are rolling up like the Gestapo with masks on in unmarked cars, snatching people up. All those rights we thought we have, they're not respecting those rights right now. But we can keep each other safe, right? We can make sure somebody knows where we are. We can have Mama Paula know that if she doesn't hear from us by 8 p.m., this is who you call, right? And so those are the things that we're arming ourselves with, is making sure that we have community safety patrols, which have done an amazing job here in LA. When we say ICE out of LA, ICE don't have nowhere to sleep right now, because they went to all the hotels that were housing ICE and made a lot of noise and complained to Hilton and Marriott until they relented and said, okay, we're not renting rooms to government employees right now, you know?
The city of Glendale canceled their detention contract. So evidently this marching is having some impact.
That's right. And some of it's really fun, like singing bedtime songs really loudly in front of a hotel. That is a good time to me.
Tell folks how to get involved and tap in with Black Lives Matter Grassroots, BLM LA, our movement.
Yeah, well, we want everybody to tap in, and we'd love to have you in Black Lives Matter Grassroots. We're BLM Grassroots on all social media and blmgrassroots.org online. And then BLM LA is BLM LA on X. We're still on X. And BLM Los Angeles on Instagram.
I'll stay on X. Somebody's got to be there.
Yeah.
Fight the power.
Yep. Yep.
Dr. Melina Abdullah, it is always great talking with you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. New York City leaders want changes to the Raise the Age law, saying it lets teens avoid charges for violent crimes.
The mentality on the street is that nothing happens to those under 18 who possesses or uses a gun.
That's Black Bronx DA Darcel Clark. She and the NYPD say it's fueling youth gun violence, pointing to a new indictment linking 9 teens to a dozen